I love Silent Hill 2, but I hate this movie! In all level-headedness, it's an alright movie. As a standalone horror movie, it's serviceable, but as a Silent Hill 2 adaptation, it's fucking horrible. Like, to an angering level of irritability bad. Around a year ago, there was a stirring word of mouth about a new Silent Hill film releasing that was being directed by the same dude who did the first Silent Hill movie from 2006. Also about a year ago was when I was actively playing the newly released at the time Silent Hill 2 Remake, a game that helped me relive the nostalgia and love I had for the original game, capturing the immersion and atmosphere and everything in between that made the OG so special. And it was all updated fairly well and faithfully. But I'm gonna fast forward past that moment of time, the good moment in time, to about 10 months later. We now get an official sneak preview for the new movie coming out, set to release only a couple months ahead or so. Everything the trailer showed was kind of a mixed bag of potential and promise, while also looking a little bit disappointing in many other aspects, such as the visuals and scenes that were chosen being pretty reminiscent in accuracy to the OG source material, but also the actors chosen kind of looked nothing like the games and were only recognizable by name and wardrobe only. Critic reviews come out the day or two before the film's theatrical release, and they were abysmal, debuting with a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes as an example baseline. 5 out of 10, 30 out of 100, all these scores reflected a possible nightmare worse than Silent Hill itself coming. So, being on the run from many losers at the time, I began to search for theaters while undercover showing said movie, which was a challenge in itself. I found one all the way across the country, so I gathered some bus change, traveled all the way from Alaska to this little ass theater to check out what all the hubbub was about. And I'll say this, is I can't believe I made the journey to sit down and watch this fucking shit. It felt like the creator was trying to make his own film, but only had a set deck or prop team that could only afford leftover Silent Hill shit in some abandoned warehouse. This is clear with every Silent Hill movie's made, it seems, too, where there's strokes of a good concept but is completely fucked in the ass over by the fact that it's a Silent Hill movie. They made James Sunderland, or as I like to call him in this film, James Blunderland, a broken, troubled alcoholic in this movie who is overseen by some therapist lady or some shit. I don't know. Frankly, I don't give a flying fuck about this dumbass character. The film's opening sequence featuring James smoking a joint, driving a fast car on a sunny day. It's a great indicator already. It's supposed to set up him from the beginning of the story, which is fine, but this doesn't feel like a Silent Hill movie in the slightest. Let me stop here to address something really quick. Something I said earlier. Why does James look nothing like his game counterpart? Like, the green jacket, fine. Average looking white guy, cool. Everything else, nah. And what's with him growing this ugly taped on ass beard from the later half of the film? It looks horrible. Apparently the director wanted James to look like, in his quote, a modern day Jim Morrison. What the actual fuck? Someone should have just looked themselves in the mirror, or whoever did this, before the decision got greenlit. Also, James is a painter in this movie for some reason. Way to lobotomize the character's facade in the OG games. In the original games, his motivations were arguably a lot more selfish and not in your face, but they went with the tragic backstory archetype. Making James a troubled alcoholic artist was both a shit-ass move, but also a flaccid attempt at reality. I did not relate to this character, nor should anyone in the audience have to, cause he sucks ass at acting, and he sucks ass at representing who James Sunderland is. I despise how they kind of made Angela look more and act like a crackhead witch than a troubled woman with a realistic and believable trust issue. In fact, her story was barely explored in the film, although hinted at, was redirected to be about James and not Angela? What the fuck? They skipped out on one of the scariest scenes in the games with the abstract daddy fight. Despite their best efforts to make the room sorta look like the original Silent Hill 2 game, it still barely touched upon the subject, which is a shame. Angela was building a fucking fort or a dam or something stupid in the beginning instead of seeming lost in the games when you meet her at the graveyard looking for her mama. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know. Fuck this rendition of her and fuck how she acts. Not the actor though. I hope she's good. Eddie was just there. Looks more like a Zach Galifianakis from Hangover type than a grown-up bully character like he is in the games. He's just forgotten about. Yeah. The whole butcher freezer scene with Eddie doesn't exist in this film. Yeah. Nor does the exploration of Eddie's own struggle with bullying, respect, or his arc of turning into a bad guy. Yeah. Laura, who looks like fucking Megan in this film, is some annoying little shit that embodies a literal daughter of James in this movie. Or the tombstone that represents the full name of Mary. I don't know if Mary had a Laura in her name, even though Laura isn't James's daughter in the games and is a representation as something like innocence. Hey, what the hell even was she in this movie? You forgot about us. Fuck you, fucking shit. Maria in this movie looks more like an extra from Blade Runner 2049 than Maria from the games, but other than that face and hair, aka that's how most of us make character comparisons, she looks and acts fine. The on-screen depiction of Pyramid Head was neat, I guess. They got the representation of James right, but in a completely different usage of context. It was just so on the nose and literal and fucking spoon-fed to the audience, and it just takes me out of the immersion. Cause for a split second, I was kind of engaged in the film when I got to see Pyramid Head chasing James down the hotel hall. Then there's a scene where James goes full emo into a hallway of paintings and fucking makes Pyramid Head stab Maria as a means of saying, "You won't take over my mind. I control my destiny." And I was jaw-dropped at the whole idea of him controlling Pyramid Head. Climax was fairly promising, at least, because James confronts the manifestation of Mary as visually pretty moth-like figure, and he takes the both of them and kills them off in a joint car suicide, kind of like the bad ending in Silent Hill Remake. I was like, cool, I don't mind how this ends, but then it happened. The real ending to this film. A car or a truck comes, and it's absolute bullshit to the point where it almost flipped out of my seat and chucked my limited edition $10 large bikini bottom icy at the screen. But I wanted to set a good example for the kiddies. They pulled an It's a Wonderful Life ass ending where everything played out in a flash of life in front of James's high ass as it cuts back to the beginning of him almost getting hit by a semi as he picks up Mary and names shit ahead of time like, ooh, he knows the future in the lore, and it's just so dumb. It's dumb as fuck. And they drive off recklessly into the sunset instead of going to Silent Hill, which is supposed to be a manifestation of his mind! Alright, let me talk about some good. The visual cinematography was actually, for the most part, pretty gorgeous. I really love the shot, regardless of accuracy, of James walking through the maze of faces that he painted of Mary full of varying emotions, and it pans up to an expanded shot of the maze that seems to metaphorically represent his mind state. It's obvious, but when you have the bar this fucking low to the Lakeview basement, sifting through the shit makes scenes like this feel like holding up gold. I kind of appreciate the attempt to addressing the audience to fans of the concept of Silent Hill 2, that the scene involving the radio, for example, which is a main gameplay element where you grab a radio and it tells you if there's nearby enemies or threat. It's given to him by some hobo or some shit who never exists in the actual game, and he fucking dies 2 seconds later. And it isn't just through the idea of James traversing his own personal Alice in Wonderland adventure, but also the themes that are expressed. I do believe that the director has some intention for his vision, and does kind of prove he's a fan of Silent Hill through the interviews and how he kind of warps the concepts to this film. It just aggravates me because he's obviously trying to make a worthwhile project and honor both his vision and also the OG source, but at the same time, he doesn't really do the source justice and butchers the story and a lot of the themes that were intended for the original orientation of Silent Hill 2. Like the return of the direct cult elements from the first couple of movies, which is not really a Silent Hill 2 theme or as big of one in Silent Hill 2. Even in his older endeavors, the cult shit was there in like Silent Hill 1 from 2006, and it's bonkers and off the wall and like only half Silent Hill like. Anyways, at random or whenever James gets a fucking migraine from a seemingly unexplained reason, we get into the upside down from Stranger Things for whatever reason. It's just kind of stupid and drastically different vibe-wise from the actual game. One of my favorite elements of the original games was the use of color and direction in the visuals, where a lot of the stuff on the surface is dimly lit and foggy and dreary and mostly gray. But the further you descend, the darker, the murkier, and the more red it gets, signifying something in the form form of insanity, exemplified way better in the remake, but in general, the film's use of visual iconography is not awful. Could have been done better, obviously, but I don't mind it. It's just a general reflection of Hollywood video game movies in our current time, I guess. The effects in the initial trailer were kinda okay, but the more I watched the film, the less I started to notice the bad effects. In fact, a lot of the film was allegedly practical. The nurses were prosthetic human actors, apparently, with some CGI and makeup effects, which is cool to hear. And the iconography in general was pretty lore accurate. Every major enemy, character, or boss that shows up on screen looked pretty close to the game, both in the original and the remake. Sometimes I get an icky feeling that some scenes utilize generative AI in both the background and the enemies, but instead of assuming, I'll just leave the written criticism of mine alone until the actual evidence for it comes out. Just my own tired, broken hunch. I've been spending too much time in my own personal Silent Hill watching this movie, so bear with me. Music was also a pretty awesome surprise. Turns out the composer of the original games was a big part of the film's score. I think it was kind of sad how they didn't play Promise Reprise anywhere in there. They got all the other essential tracks in, I'm 90% sure. Even playing Laura's theme at the end of the credit sequence, as unfitting as it is, the rendition of Day and Night was wonderful, especially during the end climax. Use of the town music was pretty correct and immersive too, and although the score isn't a 10 out of 10, it's a retrain of an already existing composition after all, it's still very competent standalone. At the end of the day, the film was mediocre overall. I would definitely say the film is not good, especially if you're a fan of the original games, and while it's got good qualities, there's just not enough to justify defending the entirety of this film. Especially the bad being so glaring. So if you want a good fucking adaptation of Silent Hill 2, play the fucking remake and leave me the fuck alone.
This is unspeakably, shockingly bad. It's sickeningly loathsome. It's a fucking suffering to the mind.